I gave an assignment. I said when you get to the browser, let's go live. Oh, this one will turn that. Let's remove this one. So it's not going to turn. Okay, let's run it on the browser now. Let's say let's see. Let's see. So I said we want a situation whereby these names will not leave the screen even when you refresh the screen, when you refresh the page. You're welcome, sir. I said we want a way so that these names, if I refresh now, the names will leave, right? But we want to keep them. So how do we do that? We talked about local storage in the last class, that you can store them in local storage. So what you're going to do is this. When you add a new person, we are going to store this array in local storage. When we add a new person, we store this in our local storage. So this is the function adding a new person. When it is done displaying, you can just say local storage dot set item. Let's say users. What do you want to store there? We want to store this array ARR in our local storage. So the array will be stored in local storage, but there is a problem. I explained to us that local storage stores its item in strings, and this is an array of objects. We are going to push objects into this array. So this is actually an array of objects. So this is going to give us a little issue. But let's first do this, then we look at that part together. So let's open this place, applications. Let's clear the local storage. Let's add a new item. I say keystate is this. Now you can see object. You can't see the item. So in order to solve that, we want to stringify it before we start in our local storage. So you can even do it here. You can say JSON just stringify here like this. So convert it to string before storing it in local storage. Now let's remove this. Now we can add new item. We have this there, so use it. Let's add another person. So now we have the two items in our local storage. Any questions to this part before we continue? Is there any question? Next is when we get to the page, because even as at now, when we refresh the page, it will leave. Right? It will leave. But what we want to do is when we get to the page, we want to display these items that we have in our local storage. Immediately we get to the browser, we want to display these items that we have in our local storage. So how do we do that? Now, what you're going to do is this. This part, this is the part responsible for displaying it on the screen. This part. We find a way to run this part. But this is starting as an empty array. So instead of it being an empty array, we want it to go to local storage, get what is in the local storage, then run this part. I come again. instead of it being an empty array, you want it to go to local storage instead. Use the item in local storage. Then on this part, I see something we can improve. I see a part we can improve. Let's quickly do that before we move forward. This is here, and we are repeating it here. What we have here is the exact thing we have here. So instead of repeating, remember, don't repeat yourself. Don't repeat yourself. So we can create a function that will put it inside your function. We can say function display names. Inside this function, we put this inside here, like this. So we can now remove this here and call on display names. And call on display names. So it can come here now and also call on display names. So when it gets here, it will quickly run it and display the names on the page. Let's say we have some names here right from the beginning. Let's say we have name we are not even using department, but let's just work with this in a second. So we have this here. When you call on it, it's going to run these parts and ensure that the names are displayed on the screen. That's why you have this story. Are we getting it?
So I'll continue.
Okay, so Sharifat. Okay. Maybe she's not there. Let's continue. So, when you click on this button, this on this code, then display all the names. But what we want to do is this array here. We want it to be the one in the local storage instead. Let's see what we can do. So we can say let ARR equals to local storage dot get item. In the local storage, the name is users.
Sir, sorry, I noticed something. Sorry.
Okay, sir.
I noticed something. Sorry, I didn't catch your attention earlier on. I'm seeing that display names, like that display names, the way it's appearing like this. I don't really understand it though.
Okay, sir.
The display name down here, is it that you are calling on the local function or?
Okay. When it gets the codes here will not be called upon. But immediately it gets here, it will go back and run the codes here. Do you get it, sir? You nothing we load it on the browser.
The same logic as Python syntax. Is it kind of something like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So as I to explain this part, do you get it, sir?
Yes, I understand it.
Alright. So you can say local storage dot get item. Users. This goes to local storage and get it for us. But remember I told us that it is still a string. We need to pass it. So this will go to local storage, get it first, ensure that ARR is the past one. Now when we get to the browser now, if you refresh, you will see the names there. We can also add new names. Peter, let's say mechanical. We have new person. If you refresh now, we will have this, but there's a little problem. The problem is this. What if the very first time I get to this page, the very first time, there's no users? Of course, the first time there will be no users in your local storage because you've not clicked on this button. If I clear this and I refresh the page, I've deleted everything in my local storage now. Now this is throwing an error. Cannot the property null display names. What that means is that this is saying go to local storage and get users for us, but there is no users in local storage, so there is nothing to pass. Did you get it?
Okay.
So of course this will now be null. You can't get the, when ARR will be null, you can't get the length of null. So this part is throwing an error. That's the reason for that. When it calls on display name, it's going to run the code there. ARR is none, so there's nothing. So what we want to do is that if this is empty, if there's nothing in my local storage, then what is it called? Use an empty array. Let ARR be an empty array. We can do that too. So we can say that when you run this and there's nothing there, use an empty array. So if this is not undefined, it will assign ARR to be this empty array. This is all. So either this or this. So if this does not, if it's unable to get this, then it's going to assign this to an empty array. So now the error has gone. So ARR is an empty array now. Now we can now add items there. You can refresh and everything is working fine. Now the syntax I used here, this here, is part of ES6 syntax. ES6 syntax. So in our next class, we start with ES6, ECMAScript 6. We've been using ES5 all this while. Now, look at how this here, if you are doing it with ES5, let's try to do it with ES5 and you see the how test rates can be. Okay, if this is this, you can say that we want to check if there's a property in local storage graph. Sorry, someone wants to join the class. We want to see if there's a property in local storage called users. We can use local storage dot as on property. As on property is an inbuilt function in JavaScript to check if an object has a property on it. To check if an object has a property on it. So as on property, that is, does it have property called users? If this is going to return either true or false. If it returns true, then that means it exists in local storage. If it returns false, that means it does not exist. So we can say if this is true, if it has it, then I come here. So ARR will be the one in local storage. If it sees that it's in local storage, let ARR be the one in local storage. Else, if it does not exist, let ARR be an empty array. So ARR will either be this or this. If there is a user's property in my local storage, go and get the one there. If there is nothing, let ARR be an empty array. Yeah, I think this should solve our problem. Refresh, yeah, it's working fine. Let's delete this, yeah. Applications, clear my local storage, refresh now, yeah, it's an empty array. It's not showing any error in the console. So this is working fine. So let's say Tolu and let's say physics is working very fine. So you can see the difference between ES5 and ES6. We're using this long approach with this short approach. So ES6 will make us write more efficient codes, shorter codes, make our life much more easier. So starting from the next class, we are going to move to ES6 and you see how it will make our work much easier. Any question before we go?
No questions, sir.
Alright, thank you for coming. Thanks for coming. Sherifas, thank you, man. Kisley, thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Good night.